Have you ever stopped to think about why, most of the time, we don't buy a car, we buy a payment plan? This question seems simple, but it has enormous power to reveal something that almost no one realizes at the moment of purchase. And perhaps you've already experienced this. You walk into the dealership, see that model you've always dreamed of, hear the salesperson speaking in a calm voice, see that affordable payment plan flashing on the screen, and suddenly everything seems to make sense. It's as if the car is already in your garage, as if the dream has already become a reality. What you're about to discover may surprise you, because this seemingly innocent moment is exactly where the financial prison begins that leaves so many people suffocated for years. Car dealership marketing perfectly understands how our minds work. They know that when you look at financing, your brain doesn't analyze the total impact on your budget. It only sees the small, comfortable, emotional number. That's why so many people fall into traps like hidden interest rates, long terms, and financing that costs 2 or even 3 times the price of the car. And this is where the 4-20-10 rule starts to become even more important, even before you learn what it means. Because without realizing it, you find yourself trapped in light installments that, deep down, build a heavy life. And few people really stop to analyze how this pattern repeats itself. Perhaps you're experiencing this right now. Maybe you're paying for a car that seemed affordable at first, but now takes a huge chunk out of your income every month. Or maybe you're thinking about buying one and have heard someone say, "Relax, just finance it. The installments are small." Stick with me until the end, because the truth is that this common and normalized discourse hides a system designed to make you spend more than you can afford, believing you're getting a good deal. The sense of security that the installment payment provides is illusory, and dealerships know exactly how to use this to their advantage. The most dangerous part of this story is that nobody explains it to you. Nobody tells you that by only looking at the installment payment, you're overlooking the real impact on your budget, your personal finances, your future. Nobody warns you that financing a car without a strategy can put you in a silent financial prison, one that tightens slowly but steadily every day. And that's precisely why understanding the mindset behind your consumption decisions is just as important as understanding numbers, interest rates, and calculations. What I want to show you, step by step, is how the industry uses this manipulation of affordable installments to keep you in a cycle that seems comfortable, but isn't. And how financial discipline, combined with smart choices, can be the key to getting you out of this predicament disguised as comfort. Now I want to delve even deeper into this reality that almost no one talks about, because that's where the real transformation begins. And while we're talking about all this, maybe something inside you is already making sense. Maybe you're remembering your own experience with financing, an impulse purchase, or even that conversation where someone tried to convince you that a low monthly payment is always a good deal. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. Often, your story is exactly the experience someone else needs to hear to avoid falling into the same trap. And when you comment, you not only participate in the conversation, but also help this topic reach more people who are trapped in this same cycle without realizing it. By the way, go ahead and like the video, not out of obligation, but because each like tells the algorithm that this type of content has value, that talking about financial discipline, the 4-20-10 rule, conscious consumption, and freedom is important. It may seem like a small action, but it makes a huge difference in getting this message to those who really need to hear it. And if you feel that this content resonates with you, that it alerts you, that it helps you see what no one explains, subscribe to the channel. Your subscription is what keeps this community alive. It's what gives us the strength to continue bringing up topics that dismantle these illusions and show what happens behind the scenes of financial decisions. I like to think that every person who signs up here is saying, "I want to learn, I want to evolve, I want to make better choices." And that creates something much bigger than a channel. It creates a group of people who refuse to live suffocated by installments, interest, and empty promises. Your participation here is what makes this conversation come alive, grow, and reach more people with this message that nobody tells you. Now that you understand how this first trap is set, I want to go even deeper and show you how the rest of this system was designed to seem comfortable, when, in reality, it only traps you more and more. When you start to calmly observe the behavior of car dealerships, you realize that there's a whole silent choreography happening before your eyes. Nothing there is accidental. Every phrase, every smile, every "we can improve this installment here" is part of a game where the objective isn't to sell the car, but to sell the feeling of comfort. And it's precisely this feeling that many people fall for. Without realizing it, the salesperson never starts by talking about the total price, because they know that number is daunting. They start with what seems light, presentable, almost innocent. They extend the payment term a little, then a little more, and suddenly the installment becomes so low that you feel it would be almost irresponsible to say no. It's at this moment that emotional thinking takes the place of rationality, and financial decisions begin to be guided by impulse, not clarity. The most curious thing is that the entire negotiation revolves around what seems accessible, not what is actually feasible. While you look at the installment payment, the seller looks at the term, and the longer the term, the greater the profit. This is how interest rates that should be frightening are camouflaged, diluted over months so far apart that the impact seems minimal. But this is the hidden truth that almost no one talks about. Most people don't finance a car. They finance years of emotional and financial commitment. And without realizing it, they enter into an agreement that drains income, energy, and opportunities. You sign believing you are gaining freedom, but you are, in fact, exchanging freedom for immediate comfort. And there's a detail that almost no one imagines. Many people finance a car over 72 months or even more, and trade it in before even paying it off. This means they carry debt upon debt, entering an endless cycle where it always seems like the payment fits in their budget, but life remains tight. It's as if each trade-in creates the illusion of a fresh start, when in reality, it's just a restart within the same financial prison. This is the kind of revelation that shakes our perception because it shows the real impact of the choices we make without thinking. The surface seems simple, but the behind-the-scenes story tells a different tale. The problem isn't liking cars or wanting to fulfill a dream. The problem is when marketing is so well constructed that it hijacks your long-term vision. You start to believe that the monthly payment is all that matters, and you ignore the emotional cost, the stress, the monthly worry that becomes routine. And when the burden starts to weigh on you, you think the mistake was the car, when in reality it was the time frame, the strategy, the lack of a clear limit that would prevent this cycle from repeating itself. This is where a silent transformation begins, when you realize that there's a huge difference between what seems possible and what truly makes sense within your financial journey. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding how this illusion is constructed is the first step to breaking it completely. Before continuing, leave a comment below. That makes sense to me, to show that you too are seeing what was hidden. When you honestly start to observe what really happens with long-term financing, the first sensation is one of astonishment, because nobody imagines that that easy installment, so readily accepted and so well presented by the salesperson, can turn into the equivalent of paying for 2 or even 3 cars for the price of 1. This is the reality check that many people only realize when they're already halfway through, strapped for cash, tired, and trying to understand why their financial life isn't progressing. The hidden truth is that extended financing not only multiplies the total cost, but also changes your emotional relationship with money. The buy now, pay later seems advantageous on the surface, but it transforms into a silent contract of years of commitment, gradually draining your ability to grow, save, and breathe. When you stretch out a loan to 60 or 72 months, you're not just buying time. You're accepting interest that accumulates month after month, turning an $80,000 car into something that, by the end of the journey, can easily exceed $130,000 or more. It's like buying a white ghost car that you never see, but you pay for it every month. The impact of this is profound because it changes your mindset regarding priorities. Money that could be building savings, investing, opening doors for real transformation, ends up trapped in an expense that drags on for years. And all of this started with a decision guided by emotion, not clarity. And why does this happen so often? Because 90% of people completely underestimate the weight of the installment payment in the cost of living. The human mind is programmed to cling to the smallest number, the monthly amount that seems effortless. But that's precisely the trigger that keeps so many consumers trapped in this financial prison. A person looks at the installment of $899 $999 or $1,099 and thinks, I can handle it. But they don't realize the accumulated impact, the emotional and financial strain that will come. And when they do realize it, they're already trapped in the long-term commitment, often without room for important decisions, without a margin for unforeseen events, without the freedom to start over. This is the kind of revelation that shakes up how you see your choices. Because you begin to understand that the problem was never the car itself. The car isn't the villain. The villain is the invisible weight of the installments that seem harmless, but drain your income for 5, 6, or 7 years. The villain is the lack of a clear limit, of a simple rule that protects your decisions. The villain is that feeling that, if it fits in the budget, everything is fine, when in reality, what's happening is a continuous leak in your budget, silent but extremely powerful. And when you finally realize this, when you understand the real impact of this choice, something inside you changes. It changes the way you look at consumption. It changes the way you evaluate priorities. It changes your awareness of financial freedom. This is the turning point that many people never reach because they continue to focus only on immediate pleasure without seeing the cost that accompanies the entire journey. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because there's a layer to this story that almost no one knows. And understanding this layer can completely change how you make decisions from now on. Before continuing, write in the comments, I'm on this journey too. When we reach this point in the conversation, it becomes clear that there's a pattern, almost like an emotional trap carefully constructed over the years. And that's precisely where the 20-4-10 rule comes in, not as a limitation, but as a filter that separates legitimate desire from hasty decisions. It works like that honest friend who tells you the truth when you don't want to hear it, but need to. 20% down payment, a maximum of 4 years of financing, and above all, don't commit more than 10% of your income. Simple, direct, with no room for creative interpretation. It's like turning on the light in a room where you were groping in the dark. Suddenly, you see everything clearly. The most interesting thing about this rule is that it doesn't try to stop you from owning a car. It tries to prevent you from having regrets. And that difference changes everything. When you put these 3 criteria on the table, what really happens is a transformation of mindset. Impulse gives way to clarity. Emotion gives way to logic. Haste gives way to awareness. There are no tricks, no shortcuts, no marketing capable of bypassing this filter because it's built on reality. Your financial reality, not the fantasy sold at the dealership counter. And it's at this moment that many people discover a truth that was hidden deep down. When you apply this rule, the truth appears. Either you control the car, or the car controls you. It's almost uncomfortable to face this, because it puts all our consumption decisions into perspective. You start to see not only the car you want, but its impact on your journey. You begin to realize that freedom isn't about having more things, but about having more space within your own budget. And when that penny drops, it changes the way you look at every unmissable opportunity. The 420-10 rule is like a reality check that cuts through all the marketing hype. It forces you to look at what really matters. The down payment represents your preparedness, the deadline represents your discipline, and the 10% represents your healthy limit. If one of these 3 points doesn't add up, the problem isn't you, it's the purchase. It's as if the universe is telling you, not now, not this way, not on impulse. And contrary to what many think, this doesn't distance you from your dream. It brings you closer to it safely, strategically, and maturely. The hidden truth is that a large part of financial regrets stems from haste, not necessity. And when you adopt this rule as a principle, something inside you begins to change. You become more aware, more selective, more connected to the impact of your choices. The journey ceases to be guided by the shine of a new car and begins to be guided by the feeling of lightness that comes when you know you can afford it, that it's within your reach, that it won't suffocate your life for the next few years. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because there's a detail in this rule that few people talk about, and understanding this detail can open up a whole new path in how you handle money and important decisions. Before continuing, comment below. That makes sense to me. When the 420-10 rule finally clicks into place, something profound begins to change. It's as if you switch from automatic mode, the one where you buy because everyone else buys, Finance because everyone else finances. Accept installments because they seem small, to a more lucid version of yourself, capable of seeing not only the object, but the impact it has on your entire life. The change in mindset happens, almost silently, but it produces a gigantic transformation. You stop being an emotional consumer, guided by urgency and the seduction of the moment, and become a strategic buyer, someone who chooses consciously, who understands behind-the-scenes aspects that previously went unnoticed, who views their decisions as part of a journey and not as isolated impulses. And this transition isn't about being cold or tough on your desires. On the contrary, it's about protecting them. When you understand the real cost of a payment that seems light but weighs on you every month like an invisible chain, you realize that financial freedom doesn't come from earning more. It comes from committing less. A truly light life doesn't appear when you put a new car in the garage, but when you can sleep peacefully, knowing that nothing is draining your budget, stealing your breath, or taking away your possibilities. It's amazing how, when we remove this fixed weight from our routine, life seems to expand. Choices arise, opportunities arise, paths emerge that were previously obscured by the daily worry of paying for the car. And perhaps you've never stopped to imagine what it would be like to live for a month, just 1 month, without a debt following you like a shadow. Imagine what that relief would open up in your life. Maybe it would be the chance to save money consistently. Maybe it would be being able to breathe without fear of the unexpected. Maybe it would even be regaining the sense of control that so many people lose along the way. That's the true power of this change in mindset. It gives you back the right to decide, not to react. It takes you out of the position of someone who is constantly chasing after losses and puts you in the role of someone who guides their own path. The great revelation is that discipline is not punishment. Discipline is freedom in disguise. It's the patience to wait for the right moment, to respect your limits, to build a solid foundation before taking the next step. It's the courage to say no to something now so you can say yes to something much bigger later. When you understand this, you realize that the 24-10 rule isn't a block. It's protection. It's like a door that eliminates 80% of regrets, blocks bad choices, and lets through only what truly makes sense for your life. And when that clarity arrives, you begin to see consumption as part of a strategy, not as an emotional outlet. The hidden truth is that most people aren't living above their means. They're living below their conscious level. And when you raise that level of awareness, when you see your life more clearly, your decisions cease to be impulses and become choices. And choice is what defines financial power. You stop being dragged along by installments and start commanding your own destiny. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject because there's an emotional detail behind this change that almost no one notices, but that completely redefines how you deal with money and freedom. Before continuing, write in the comments, "I choose awareness." If you've made it this far, you can see that this topic truly resonates with your life, your decisions, and how you envision your financial freedom. Therefore, if this content has helped you clarify something, rethink choices, or even breathe a little easier, take this opportunity and subscribe to the channel. It's not just about subscribing. It's because if this type of conversation makes a difference in your journey, there will always be a space here to delve deeper into this mindset, understand the inner workings of consumption, and make more conscious decisions. And since you followed along to the end, leave a comment below with your phrase, "I'm with you until the end," just so I know this message found its place and made sense to you. This creates a huge connection with those who are on this journey together and helps keep this important exchange alive. If you'd like to leave a like, feel free. It helps show that this type of content has a real impact and that it makes sense to continue bringing up these reflections that nobody usually talks about. And before you leave, there's a video here that perfectly complements this topic and delves even deeper into this mindset shift. Click and continue reading there.